sometimes athletes are like, well, why do 7 other people have the same deal that I'm doing? And you have to like break it down to them, explain, hey,
man.
I know everybody has been telling you that you're the man since you were 10. Okay.
Right. And you are.
And you are.
Don't get me wrong.
No doubt about it. But there are levels to this. There are several levels to this.
You're
that we
on
haven't
tier
reached
20. We'll say we're at 20.
Right.
There's 100.
There's 100 of them.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
Never going back.
That'll be it. Yeah.
I will never go back.
Never again.
Being able to hear myself, as it turns out, that's like way more. That's just way more important to me. Are you recording it? Yeah. Okay. Before, you're basically, if you're on stage and you go to any venue across the country, you're basically relying on whatever like monitor support they have. That'd be like sending a fucking professional football team out and being like, it's whatever football Cincinnati has. Sorry, you're going to figure it out. Like, you're my official. You're my episode 3. That's it. The Holy Trinity. I found this statistic the other week that like 80% of like all of the millions of podcasts that start stop after the 3rd episode.
Yep.
And so I'm like, all right, there's metric number 1, right?
Right.
And then you had to cancel last week, and then so did my next guest, Molly Countermine. Okay. And because of something came up last week. She had a friend that came in, and then this week was the weather.
Okay.
So
the weather was crazy.
All the time. For sure.
I didn't anticipate it was going to snow that much.
No, nobody did. There was cars parked alongside. I think it was like people gave up. Like after the pandemic, they had like enough snow. They're like, you know what? I think I quit. And they just like pulled it over, fucking stopped. And I don't know how they got home, but like,
I took a nap, woke up. I knew we were getting a little bit of snow. And I wake up and it's just like snow flurries. The street's covered. It's ridiculous. I live right on the street too, so this was very.
Do you really?
I walked right up here.
Nice, right on.
It actually worked out well because my car is in the shop as a flat tire. So when you sent the address, I was gonna have to Uber, and that's why. And I had forgotten to text you for the address when it was time to leave. I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I don't even know how far I'm going. Yeah, worked out well.
Right, not too far down the road.
Yeah,
I saw Sean posted a video. Down at the entrepreneurial center or whatever, where he did some sort of I don't know who posted that. I think like Penn State did, or
I think Sean posted it. He collaborated with the Limitless NIL Instagram page.
Yeah. That's what it was. That's what I saw.
So
I mean, look, that stuff's all being run right. Then that's good.
Doubt, man. It works out well because Sean has already a following.
Yeah.
So like when we're trying to get traction on our accounts, it's like a natural, when we collab with each other, it's a natural way to kind of pull some of his followers over to Limitless.
Yeah, and some people don't pay attention to that. Like that collaborative thing is really good for
it's such a powerful
for us
tool.
For music. It's good just because if we do something with another band, that collaborative post is like on both of our pages.
Yeah.
So it's like
it helps both sides out.
Yeah. It's a long time coming. So I'm glad that they have that in there.
Yeah. It's great. It's nice to see things like Instagram kind of lean more towards helping their creators. Like they're kind of trying to
less away from food pictures and more into
no doubt.
I mean, they have to. You got to compete with TikTok. That's like the monster right now.
Exactly
so,
why. That's exactly why.
Yeah, that's why I try to frame us up in the center so that if I have to drop a clip into a bigger timeline, I can just zoom in, fill that stories mode, and it's already you're right in the same centered spot. I'm in the right centered spot. So obviously we do the Blue White Players show together. You've come on Obligatory, haven't you? Have you come on?
I've been on Obligatory.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know you from working with you in that in that capacity, but I don't know really your story about where you I get the Reader's Digest version from Chris and from people are like, oh yeah, I can't wait till you meet him, and then I met you, I was like, oh, this guy's I don't know what I expected. I thought you were going to be older or something, and they were like, no, he's the new school, so he's got to be the youngest basically, and then Goon is Goon. How do you handle him? But the more I've gotten to listen to you talk to players along the way, and who do we have on Monday? Who do we have on this past week?
Who did we have on Monday? We had the last two. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. It's been such a chaotic week already.
You were telling the story about the guy.
Amin Vanover. We had Amin on, we had Grayson on. Yeah.
Yeah. So Grayson was your roommate or Amin was?
Amin was my roommate. We would travel to away games.
Right.
For Penn State, yeah.
And just hearing your stories, it's I enjoy that's what I love about the player show. To me, the cookie cutter, not the cookie cutter. I don't mean it to sound that way, but could you do me a favor and shut that door just in case? Sorry. Please and thank you. When I think about the questions that we ask, it's we want to get to know the players in a way that we don't usually get to unless when I worked for WPSU, we were doing Unrivaled, the Penn State football story. So I'm doing edited featurettes, little vignettes on certain players here and there. But other than that, if you didn't get that and you didn't watch Unrivaled, you didn't really get to know much about these players. You're just kind of watching these dudes roll out on the field, which just feels like that's like the ass backwards side of Penn State that they're going to have some serious catching up to do. Their media side, like the pandemic came, WPSU dissolved their sports department.
Yep.
Athletics absorbed like all the full-time videographers they were already used to working with that knew like the ins and outs of what they needed from them. And then, but they're in like a hiring freeze right now. So they can't really staff more full-timers. They're not really hiring part-timers. And like there's a few people that are in this privileged position where they can be like approved vendors and they can do specialty projects for like what their normal LA rate is or whatever, which is like great. That's the angle I'm trying to go in at. Cause I loved working with Penn State football footage and the player footage and stuff. Like Nick Scott had a thing the last game of the season, I think 2019, maybe 2018. And, like he's getting ready to declare, like he's going to the combine, like he's like going that route. And his joke in the players room, they wouldn't play out, but I was like, why? Like this is what people want to see. Like they're adhering to this, like it's always 70 and sunny in Happy Valley. What about that fucking whiteout where it's like torrentially downpouring or, there's snow out there. It's like, no, 70 and sunny, eyes on the field until like you absolutely snowflakes this fucking big, like can't do anything to, circumvent it.
The snow after a night, just stuff like that. I feel like they get caught up too much in, obviously you want to show Penn State when it's 70 and sunny and it's pretty and
for sure
are great.
Do that.
But I think about a show like Hard Knocks, and like the reason people love Hard Knocks,
it's gritty,
is because you're seeing the grittiness and the reality of it, and it's authentic, and I feel like that's what people want to see.
So getting back to you, like I worked with all these players, but like now I'm realizing the more I'm getting to meet these players and you get these little conversations with them, and then you see how they performed. Like Tyler Ellison, like I've been following him like since he came on the show at the beginning of the season. And like, what a fucking killer year he's had. Yeah. And so I'm excited to see like their growth, but I'm also excited when I get to learn about him. Like he was funny. He was probably the first funny person that I feel like we had on because he was like, he had this fucking mustache and he's like talking about how long he's had it and when he started doing it and like the things that like him being into cold plunging and shit. I'm like, that's like, if I were a student and I went here, like it's on. There's so much shit that the players have to do in the first place. It's not like you can be like, hey, we also do a Penn State football players podcast, so we're gonna everybody gets scheduled and you got to go on for your hour and it's hosted by so and so or whatever. But like truly, they should start to lean into that direction a little bit. And I don't know if Penn State's allowed to like double dip and do NIL deals with players where they can pay them for likenesses during their tenure here when they're.
That actually a new rule just came out this week where they can facilitate all deals. They could probably double dip now with this rule change. So like, and it's so, I'm in the NIL space.
Right. That's why I ask.
That's what I do. So like, each state has a different set of laws and regulations that they go by. So Pennsylvania actually, surprise, was behind on those regulations.
Commonwealth, baby.
So now they're starting to open up and allow some of those opportunities. They could do something like that in theory.
Well, so, I mean, that's my point, though. Like, you are now hosting this show. I know that you're not playing it at Penn State anymore, but did you graduate? You graduated, obviously.
Yep.
So now but like, walk me through your journey, like getting here. Yeah. Like, you're like the only person on the players show that I haven't gotten, that I haven't gotten your player's story from.
Yeah. So I came out of Moeller High School, Cincinnati, Ohio, as a private school. I was homeschooled before that. So all the way up until high school, I was homeschooled. We did that because my dad was playing in the NFL. He was kind of a journeyman, played for 3 different teams over 10 years.
Who did he play for?
He played for the Bengals. He got drafted by the Bengals. He then, after 6 years, went to Carolina for a year, tore his hamstring. They cut him. He thought his career was done. So we were back in Cincinnati. Then the Patriots called and they were like, hey, we don't think you're a good cornerback, but come work out at safety. We need help. Rodney Harrison, who was a Pro Bowler at the time, had just like...
What's your dad's name?
His name's Aeneas Hawkins. So he's from Pennsylvania, too. Anyway, moved to New England, finished his career with the Patriots. So lived out there, then ended up back in Cincinnati, which is how I got to Moeller. Got recruited pretty suddenly. I played JV my sophomore year. I wasn't good enough to play varsity.
Okay.
I was kind of a late bloomer in that sense. So, really from there, I remember I was on a plane. I was playing JV. Literally, before the plane takes off to go to Tampa Bay, where my uncle was staying, I'm like listening to Drake. He has a song called Too Much, where he's like, don't think about it too much. Like, things work out, basically. That's the whole thing. And the whole time...
That was the vibe.
I can't make this up. This is real. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't know how I'm paying for college. I like football. I think I can play football in college. I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but it's got to work out. Land in Tampa Bay. Phone is going off the hook. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's my dad calling me. He's like, hey, son, Florida State offered you a scholarship. hang the phone up immediately. I'm like, you know what? He's playing games. He's a comedian. He thinks it's funny, and he doesn't understand I'm already emotional.
He doesn't know what I've been listening to.
He has no idea. I've been listening to Drake for 3 hours in a row. So it started there. Ended up with like around 30 scholarships, I want to say. And, you know, Penn State just stuck out to me. I really wanted to go to...
So you accepted for FSU?
I didn't accept FSU, but that was the one that really got the ball rolling. So, like, Florida State offered...
Now this is not like the dream. This is not Drake on repeat.
So, like,
this
suddenly, like, I'm like, you know, I get on the plane. I'm the JV kid who thinks he can play in college, and everybody's laughing at him. And then quickly, in 2 hours, it transitions into 4-star D tackle Aeneas Hawkins. And
Hell yeah.
Notre Dame offered, Florida offered, all in like 24 hours.
What's that like?
It was different, man. That week where the offers first started coming in, we were on spring break. I came back to school.
That's the worst. They probably ruined your spring break. You're like,
goodness.
I can't go nuts. I got to think about this shit.
Yeah, so I didn't go nuts. My parents didn't play that anyway, so that wasn't going to happen. But I got back to school, and like everybody was excited. You know, it was just a different world all of a sudden. So from that point on, you know, my dad played in the NFL. So I started looking at football as a business, and I started paying attention to ways I could capitalize on the field, off the field.
Yeah.
As much as a 16-year-old can. I didn't know.
Yeah, but I mean, look, props to you for having that sort of like forward thinking about it. Because if you're going into it and you don't have your dad was in the NFL,
no doubt,
and can kind of like help you skirt around some of these potholes in the industry, you're like, it's an industry, really.
And that's what I say. It really is an industry, and it's all business. And most kids don't have that understanding going into it, and they typically don't realize it until it's too late. So I'm thankful for my dad. My uncle played in the NFL. He was a big catalyst and helped me.
You're like pedigree NFL.
Yeah, so like, but realistically, like we joking, it's like the family business, like whatever.
Right.
But I mean, I'm thankful for them because I didn't have to experience a lot of potholes. I made mistakes, but when I did, I had them to lean on.
Yeah.
They helped me navigate it, so I never had to do it alone.
Yeah, and you can like get your foot back out of the pothole quickly.
Exactly.
Like, oh, shit, up.
Right, exactly. So anyway, end up coming to Penn State. Franklin really
What year were you recruiting?
2018 was my recruiting class. So I came in the same class as, I had Micah Parsons in my class, Pat Fryman, who was with the Steelers, Odafe Owe, first rounder, Jahan Dotson. So our class was just loaded with talent.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was at Penn State at that point. I started it 2017 in August. Mm-hmm. The dude who did my band's first music video when we were like on Warped Tour, we like came back and he finished it and we like posted it and we were like, oh, this is awesome. Him and I kept in touch. He kind of became like a video mentor. And then when I started working at Penn State, it was in 2017. He was like, we need somebody that can do like flashy music video style edits and stuff to like hype this stuff up. Are you down to come in and do that? And the pay was absolute dog shit. But in my eyes, like 2017, we had Saquon. So like, and that was like a real program building year. And so I felt like the onus was on me to like my alma mater after the 2012 scandal to be like, this is something I can do. I can utilize my skills, not with the degrees that I got at Penn State, but for Penn State to kind of help in that program building essence of things. And I really, really loved it. And part of what I love so much about it is I'm looking at like 5 times slow speed, 120 frames per second, like footage of like Jahan and like, and Fryermuth and like, just like every player I watched come through from like 2017 to 2020 until the pandemic hit. I was just like, damn, these are fucking like, you see, you know, that you can watch college football and NFL and be like, oh, the college kids are faster. And it's like, well, obviously, because they don't have, they're not getting paid to be in the fucking gym getting bigger. So like, there's like this disparity in what I feel like seems like more fun to watch. I've always said like I prefer to watch college football over the NFL just because I enjoy the pacing of it a little bit better and the willingness to try just absolute like wild ass crazy fucking plays. Like,
and that's the thing that makes it like that people don't realize. And I'm sure if they gave it any thought, like they'd realize, but the kids in college are all still trying to get to the point where they're getting paid. Like they gotta get from point A to point B. The job's not finished when you get to college.
Yeah,
and those
for
NFL guys are getting $600,000 game checks.
It's a contract that we're here for so long.
Like you're not playing. The kids that are playing in college are playing to move them and their families out of the hood 9 times out of 10.
But I'm thinking about it in terms of like I'm sitting at my desk at WPSU and I've got like a roster name. So if I'm looking at numbers and they're like, hey, I need so and so, I can scan footage and find who I'm looking for. So I'm wondering now, like if I had footage that I fucked with a View between 2018 and 2020, where I'm like, I'm sure I did.
I'm sure.
But like just watching these players and being like, damn, these guys are like obviously athletes, but like you can see the hunger in it.
Yeah.
And then right around the time I think Sean took over for Trace and KJ Hamler was still here. I looked at them and I was like, man, this is really funny. Like I noticed something about them just in their behind the scenes footage that I was privy to that I was like, these guys are really media savvy. Like they're not fucking stupid. Like if Sean's being interviewed post game, KJ would give himself a moment where he would come over and like give him some love or whatever, and like just shout and give himself some camera love, and like not in like a take away from Sean kind of way, but in a like they know the game they're playing, the business they're playing, and it was the first time I had sort of seen like the youth of athleticism coming into this world, and that was prior to the NIL clearing. So it was really funny to see that, and just like I feel like I got involved in 2017. From 2017 to 2022, that's 5 years. So much has changed in the college football landscape with NIL in general, like any college level athletic program. Like, so you come to Penn State, you're in 2018, you recruited 2018, you start 2018 or?
2018 was my first season.
Okay. All right. So tell me about the process.
Yeah. So as far as like playing here.
Just like the whirlwind of it. Like we get the players show. I get that version of it where it's like how does it feel to walk out in Beaver Stadium?
I'll give you the real deal. So I get here in 2018. So my senior year of high school, I actually didn't get to play. I broke my foot going into the season. I got cleared to play football. That same week, I broke my foot training to come get ready for my freshman year at Penn State. So I ended up going from like 260 to 305. Part of that was because I was hurt. Another part was because Coach Franklin was like, hey, if you want to play D tackle here, you got to get a few bigger.
More.
Need more pounds on you. So, I wasn't running, put on a bunch of bad weight. So I came in here like way out of shape. I was weak. I was not like at all. Yeah. So the first workout, actually, we go to Beaver Stadium and we run every single one of the steps, like all of the steps in Beaver Stadium.
That's so ignorant and so cool, but ignorant.
It's ridiculous. So after that first workout, I called my mom and I'm like, hey, I'm coming home. Like I'm not in the right place. This isn't for me.
Damn. That'd be so disheartening.
Yeah. So it was disheartening, like initially, right? So, the first few months at Penn State, obviously mom hung the phone up on me. She wasn't hearing it. I stayed.
It's like camp. She's like, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
click.
Right. The first few months, they were just challenging. I really had to transform my body in certain ways. Had to learn how to compete. Obviously, you go from high school, which is one thing, to college, Penn State at that, where there are guys like Saquon Barkley who are walking around and they're very real.
Oh, yeah.
And you playing against them every day is like shock and awe initially.
Yeah.
What is this? So, that was tough. It really forced me to have to grow up a little bit.
Did you start at D tackle? So
I was a D tackle my junior varsity year. My junior year in high school, I was only 240. So they bounced me out to defensive end and outside linebacker.
Okay.
And then my senior year, I put on like 25 good pounds of muscle, but I was still playing end. So I hadn't played anybody who was any good at D tackle my whole career. I was always playing end or outside. So then I get here, Connor McGovern, who is now starting for the Dallas Cowboys, is like the dude I'm playing against every day. And he's just absolutely dogging me for months. Like I'm talking about I didn't win a rep.
Like son of a bitch.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, that part of it was tough. I tell freshmen now when I meet them that, it's just about your mental. It's about whether or not you can lock in. Things might not go your way. They probably won't your first year.
Yeah. I can imagine it's hard when you're thinking of it like as the next step is going to be the step that's going to break something away for you. That's honestly any career trajectory you want to go after. But really, like when you're looking at it step by step and not looking big picture, like, oh shit, if I think of my career here, I'm going to have 100 steps that I'm taking.
Yep.
I can't count on all of them being fucking phenomenal and loving every one of them.
They're not going to be.
Right.
No matter who you are, there's going to be some type of...
Yeah, Saquon had the down steps too.
No doubt about it.
Right.
No doubt. So, it's a mental game. Keeping focus, being willing to go through uncomfortable phases where things aren't going your way. Like, that's the hardest part. So I remember there was a time like getting out of bed every morning and it's like immediate anxiety and dread. Like you wake up and it's like,
I'm gonna get yelled at.
Yeah, like there's something that's gonna happen that's gonna challenge me. So, I'm thankful for that time though. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, listen, iron sharpens iron. Like when you're in a situation where those kind of people are kind of chiseling away at the weaker parts of you, the parts of you that want to say, I'm going to stay in bed or like how bad are they going to punish me? Like, that kind of stuff. Like that stuff is naturally whittled out just by, I always love that saying, like iron sharpens iron. So for me, I guess now you get into Penn State, you're here, you're training, you're doing it.
Yep.
You played from 2018 to
last season, 2022, like January 1st, 2022 is my last football game.
Okay. All right. Yep. And so you had to go through it. I mean, like what a fucking weird ass career for the college football realm of things. Since you come in and you're like dealing with the foot injury first and then getting into the pandemic years.
Yep.
So like, did you get you got 2018 and 2019. And so you had two good seasons before you went into the pandemic year.
Yep.
And then 2021 was last year. I can't remember. 2022. That's what you were in. So now that Could you have kept playing? Like, could you have gone 5th year and stayed again, or were you just like not feeling that?
Yeah, so I had more eligibility left. So I could have played this year if I wanted to. That would have been my 5th year because I redshirted my freshman year. And then if I wanted to do another year after that, I could have done that as well because of COVID. So COVID granted just about everybody another year.
Good, man. They should have, man. It robbed everybody for 2 years.
No doubt about it. So I could have done that. For me personally, I ended up medically retiring. I had by the time I got to college, I had 5 legit surgeries. I had an ACL, a labrum, 2-foot surgeries. And then I had a meniscus. So I had a bunch so I was already kind of going through it physically. By the end of last year, I had another surgery on my tibia. I had a hairline fracture that went all the way back. It was close to breaking. So they went in and put a plate and rods in there. Oh. And when they did that, when they told me they were going to have to do that, I'm like, you know what? It's about time.
That time.
It's about that time. I want to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle one day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's just so much more to life. You know what I mean?
Do you have a daughter?
I don't have a daughter.
The hypothetical daughter.
No, a hypothetical daughter. Hopefully one
Schrodinger's daughter. The daughter that does not exist, depending on whether or not you decide to make one.
Right.
So now you're medically retiring. You know that's happening in 2021. Where do you shift you're graduated in 2021?
So I graduated this past August. So I graduated.
Oh, so right before we started the show.
Right before we started the show. So I retired in December, and then I just was a normal student for 6 months, which was absolutely outstanding. I loved it.
You're like, I'm walking in sunshine.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I would do my classwork. I'd go down to the pool. We'll just hang out all day, watch TV.
Damn, you're like, it could have been this the whole time.
So much freedom. It's crazy. I see why people love college so much.
Right, you're like, it is fun. My bad. No. Yeah, but I mean, nobody gets those highs of walking out in Beaver Stadium at a whiteout game. So it's like,
no doubt.
You take the good with the bad. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you paid for it, for sure. So shifting forward, when did you start partnering with Sean Clifford with the NIL stuff? I don't know when he started kind of baking that, because I haven't had the chance to really research that side of things.
Yeah, so I'll take you way back. Sean played for my rival high school.
Shit.
Yeah, so he's from Cincinnati. I played for Moeller. He played for St. X. We were at the time the clear number 1 and number 2 in the state every single year. We always had the best football team. So he played quarterback. I was playing D-line. We didn't get along in high school. We weren't buddies.
No shit. Yeah, that's so funny.
So obviously we both come to Penn State, get close. Then I retired, and less than a month after I retired, he called me one day. I'm sitting on my couch watching Workaholics. I'm not sure if you've seen Workaholics.
Oh, yeah.
Before. And he's like, hey, come over. I got something for you that I think you'll be interested in. And that's when he pulled me in. He told me about the concept of Limitless and what they were trying to do.
Is this post NIL announcing? Or?
This is after the NIL announcing. So
that was what, summer 2021?
Yeah, July 2021 is when it started. So I had navigated NIL myself a little bit.
Right.
But then I retired, and he told me, he was like, hey, we had almost a full year of NIL at that point. And he's like,
Penn State was dropping the ball.
Penn State was dropping the ball, but it wasn't just Penn State. It was really a national issue where we didn't feel like these big-time agencies were really keeping the student-athlete's best interest in mind. And they weren't.
In what way? What do you think?
Any agency that's worth anything should be able to get kids deals and be able to get kids some money and put it in their pockets. But, they're not teaching kids how to develop brands. They're not teaching kids how to not only make money, but to keep money. And we just felt like they weren't prepared and holistically developing them to not only be successful while they were playing still, but then also when their careers were to end. So obviously.
And just off the field in the interim, while you're there during the season. It's nice getting the players to come in, they get some food, they get a check.
Exactly.
It's come on the show.
Exactly.
And to me, I'm like, we as in the local economy here in Happy Valley know that how well your hotel or restaurant or anything does is tantamount to how well you are able to cater to the fan base of Penn State alumni and Penn State football fans in general.
Yep.
And I just feel like it is pulling teeth to get these people to want to invest in anything that has anything to do. It's almost like they don't want to invest in something that basically guarantees their survival.
Yeah.
And so I don't really fully understand why that is. And I think it's partially because I think the culture in this area tends to be a decade behind the times. And so I was a little worried whenever the NIL broke, because I'm in a text thread with Chris and Brandon Noble. So he's coaching high school football and dealing with his kid going I don't know if his son Connor was going the JUCO route or what route he was taking, but I was friends with Paris Palmer. So I've had all these nuanced little conversations and experiences with different athletes that have gone through that football, meat grinder to get to where they are now. And I'm like, how is it that we don't have the infrastructure in place? It's for a place that has this insane amount of financial resource available to it, they just seem to implement it so poorly. And so like whenever Chris was like, oh yeah, Aeneas and Sean, they're doing this NIL agency, and like they're basically trying. I met up with Franklin over the summer at a golfing event, and he was there. I think he was in Scranton before he stopped off at that event to just sort of like just do some public speaking and sort of let people know, like, look, like NIL's here, like it or not. Like we have not done so hot with it this first year. And I think like what I'm actually kind of secretly glad about is that they put the onus on themselves to be like, hey, we dropped the ball. Regardless of whether or not a bunch of people are, the NIL is just a new concept in general, and so many people are. But like in doing that, it kind of erases the doubt of, okay, there's some blame that we can take for it. Now, how do we start moving forward and fixing this? Yep. And that seemed to be the mentality moving forward. So like, I'm really excited to see where this goes. Yeah. Now that you get the call from Sean, you go over to his place. You're like, okay, this is what's happening. When around that time? Like, when's that?
Yes, that's about February of 2022.
This year.
Yeah, it had just started, and it really started small. That's kind of the beautiful thing. Now we're at 50 clients that we represent now, a lot of which are at Penn State, but we also have a nice sized group of athletes who are at different places around the country. So we've grown a lot. We just purchased a studio downtown. We're getting into things like consulting. So we're rolling with a lot of different things, and we've expanded. But it started off literally on Sean Clifford's couch. At his apartment, and we would just go in there. We'd be whiteboarding ideas. We'd be working together a couple times a week. So it really started, very small, very intimate, and just, a lot of ideation and people throwing ideas off of each other. So we have a good group. I don't want to just shout out, myself and Sean. We've done a lot of work, but
I asked you the other day. I was like, how many people are in Limitless? Like,
yeah. So we have a good team that really has dedicated a lot of manpower, man hours to making this thing go.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I look at it like we were talking a little bit on Monday. I was like, to me, like you guys are doing this thing. Like there's nothing cooler than an NIL group or agency put together like that. That's specifically coming off the backs of players.
Yeah.
That are like, and especially you as a player, having your dad's experience that you're able to pull from, Sean's experience. Like I'm sure the pool of you collectively, you all bring something really valuable to the table. And in doing that, what I really like about it is that, like, in my head, I have this like fantasy. I'm like, I kind of hope that Sean sticks around after this season, instead of like going to the combine or doing like any of going the NFL route, which is selfish of me to say that. But I think that I've observed from him that his business acumen seems like it's pretty on par. Yeah. So it's like, that's the kind of person you want to have doing that locally. And he's got this killer career at Penn State that he's going to be leaving. And he's got this opportunity to really like give back to the community in a way that like not a lot of people that leave Penn State as an athlete get to do. Yeah. And he's got the right mindset going into it where he could do some really powerful things in a world where he's got some clout, that little bit of clout that he's got compared to like, Ariana Grande or something like that, millions of followers. That's a stepping stone. Like that's a platform for him to be able to really launch this from. And everybody else collectively bringing into it, getting 50 clients, and that obviously is going to continue to grow. Yep. Like where you're at now, it's like it's going to be really cool to see where you guys end up in the next like 2 to 3 years.
It'll be fun, man.
And I think like it's funny, like if you think about where it's been since February of last year, think about where it'll be funny. Just you should take pictures, save that fucking couch, and like that should be in every meeting room for like the next 10 years until the legs fall off the fucking thing.
Absolutely.
So what was your pull? Like what was like his elevator pitch to you that got you on board with being like, all right, yeah, let's do this?
Yeah. So kind of what you were alluding to, just the whole idea of an agency being for athletes by athletes. And, just the understanding that, people like myself and Sean and, Sean's little brother, Liam, just have through our own experiences. And really what he did that I appreciated was just that it was an opportunity to give back to people who I know are experiencing certain things because I had experienced them myself. As an athlete, it's easy to get caught up in the identity piece where you're just an athlete, and it's hard to kind of expand beyond that, not only in business but in life, not just while your career is going either, but even after. So, my job is to recruit the athlete. My job is to keep the athlete happy and then also get them thinking about life beyond their sport. And I find a lot of pride, and I enjoy doing it because, again, I experienced that where I had to retire before I thought I was going to have to.
Right.
I dealt with injuries, and the game was taken away from me. And the reason I'm able to do some of the things that we're starting to do now is because of people like my dad and my uncle who were constantly pouring into me and were preparing me for life in football and outside of it. So, to me, it's something that's important that every athlete should have access to. And obviously, until it becomes a standard nationally, especially at a school like Penn State.
Yeah, for sure. Really kind of the proving grounds. It's like, if we can make it happen here, it's like you can set the template.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's what I was saying on Monday. I look at, I'm just thinking about how you guys sit there and probably converse about, whatever your team meetings are that you do every week. Mm-hmm. It's like, is it possible that you guys could sit in a round table room kind of situation and do that as like a podcast that could be released? Yeah. That doesn't give away the secret recipes or anything like that, or the connections or the conversations about anything specifically, but is able to kind of be like a talking point for basically like developmental meetings you guys can have. Yeah. And I just think that, like, I listen to you talk on the show, so I'm like, you clearly know what's going on. And if you and Sean are 2/10 or 16ths of what make up, Limitless, that's already a good fucking start. Like, I don't know anybody else yet. So like as I'm like finding out more about Limitless as it grows, it's nice to see that it just feels like we're in a good spot with that right now.
I appreciate that. It's like I said, it's been a lot of fun. I think, obviously we want Limitless to grow. We want Limitless to be successful.
Last week wasn't fun. You had
we had a big time deal start to head south. We got it fixed. We got the deal fixed.
Good.
But that's a part of it for sure. But again, like the reason we started it wasn't because, hey, Sean Clifford wants to make a bunch of money and have a big time agency. Really, the real root of it is we want to kind of set a standard of what it looks like to represent a student athlete and the things that you should be providing to the student athletes. And hopefully other agencies and other people begin to mimic some of those practices and really put the student athlete's best interests, as the priority in what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, set the benchmark. And to me, like, I look at the few things that I feel like Penn State does really well. It's usually implementation of new ideas and concepts like this if they are executed on the right way. Yep. And so it's like, this is a scenario where, hey, look, okay, yeah, we, like a lot of other schools, probably dropped the ball with NIL the first year. Yep. We're on the pickup. And then out of that, we spawn, our senior quarterback is now going to be the head of this agency and starting his spiel with that. Yep. And he's got all of the teachings and the metrics for success and like honor that come with being a Penn State athlete. Like the notoriety of like sort of like the lore of a Penn State athlete is you're like, that's a fucking good person. Like, I don't have to know anything else about him if he's a Penn State football player. I'm like, I know he's a good human being because you basically can't survive through the program being like an egotistical dickhead. Right. So it's like knowing that that's already curbed and just taken out of the equation gives us a scenario where it's like, okay, well then where is the limit to this? Like, well, obviously no pun intended, but like just seeing where it's going to go is going to be really exciting. I'm really, really excited to do that. And so the whole concept behind my podcast of Collab or Die is really just sort of like detailing out across industry what the parallels and importance are of collaboration in this space. And so in the NIL space, I can't imagine what that looks like necessarily because I don't deal with it. But I would imagine that there are certainly a lot of parallels to any other industry that exists out there, especially in the agency realm of things, where you're trying to find a way to connect dots and like put these people in touch with these people. And as you grow your roster and you those connections expand and grow, that's going to kind of be like a natural consequence that more dots will be more easily connected. Yeah. What are you finding is like the challenge right now?
Yeah, man. The number one thing, we've done a lot of good work, just as a unit, as a company, with other collectives in State College, actually. I think about Success with Honor. I think about We Are NIL, and we've done good things with both of those groups. And then even on the athlete level, we have athletes all over the country now. So they're starting to work together, and they're starting to build their own networks. And they collab or die. That mantra is very real in any industry, like you said. Now, I think the biggest thing is because we're in sports and because I'm dealing with a bunch of naturally highly, highly competitive people that want to be the top dog.
Right.
To even give them the idea of collaboration and receiving help, giving help, and teamwork. And you would think,
they work on a team, they would get it.
It is so hard to get them to see it outside of, the sports realm of things. But that's been a big challenge. But again, don't hear me the wrong way. We do a lot of it.
I think it's going to happen. There's no scenario where you're skirting that whatsoever. Right. That's in every industry. Like I've been on tour with bands where like the lead singer and a bunch of hired guns are his backing band, but he's the focus.
Right.
And the roster always changes, but he's the centerpiece. Like he's the guy who's got to get all the attention. And like for years, and they'll do it for years, like just pounding the pavement, not making progress.
Yep.
And it's like, it must be the industry's fault. And it's like, couldn't have been anything else. Right. Couldn't have been anything else in that little recipe you've got going on.
Right.
So, but I mean, obviously, it is vital. Like to me, that's like in music, it's like the person who's like, oh, I don't want to put out any songs that we've done with somebody as a co-writer. Like I only want to write my own songs. Like my songs are going to be my songs. It's like, even your songs can't be your songs.
Right.
Like they're all stemming from your influences, which are name all of them. And it's like that has influenced you. You're borrowing whether you think it or not. Like there's only so many notes, so many chords, so many progressions that you can do.
No doubt.
So like to me, what I like to explore is that crossover. What are the parallels? And so, collaboration is like a difficult one for some. I can't imagine I'm not saying that the egos would be stronger, but certainly the competitive mindset would definitely be stronger. And I've met dudes that like, I used to tour manage a band called Our Last Night, and Trevor, their singer, he is one of the most competitive people. Doesn't matter if you're playing Can Jam, doesn't matter if you're playing basketball. Like we played dodgeball at this venue in Minnesota, I think it was. And they were fucking savages. Like you couldn't take them to like one of those trampoline parks where we would like murder some small group of 5 and 6 year olds just out of the urge to be competitive.
Right.
And so I've seen competitive people in the music industry, but by and large, you're not going to find it in any more of a condensed manner than you're going to, I think, in a college football landscape where you've got all these players that are like, okay, like I got this. And you have to, like, I think Chris broke this down from the other day, like how many teams are there? How many roster spots get filled every year? Like there's a lot of people that are going to be going home or waiting to be a free agent or walk-ons or whatever. And that could be their path for, a good couple years after they're done if they don't declare for the draft and, or, go in the first round or in the 20th round. So it's like, what are like, I guess like without naming names, like what are some of the specifics that you've had to tackle when it comes to like, this person doesn't quite grasp the concept, but he's getting there.
Right. Right. It's just, so like we'll do deals, and some of these deals, the brand will reach out and they'll want to work with several athletes at once.
Okay. Can you name any of the brands or is that?
So we've done deals with like, with Body Armor. We did one with McDonald's, Walmart, a bunch of different brands, all kinds of brands.
But those are big brands, sizable brands, Fortune 500 companies.
No doubt. And with the big brands, unless you yourself are like in a different stratosphere with your social presence on a TikTok or Instagram,
right,
the brand is probably not going to want to work with you by just yourself.
Your athleticism on its own.
They don't care.
That's fucking
McDonald's
funny.
Is the name brand.
Yeah.
Many more people know McDonald's than player X at this school. So, sometimes those players can get upset when it's like, hey.
Did you see over the summer, like, Sweetie had that deal with McDonald's where she had like a meal or something like that?
I had it a couple times. It was actually decent.
So I mean, I'm watching that. I was like, that was like kind of that felt new to me. Like I'd seen people, I'd never seen a meal, like come out of somebody's name, image, and likeness. Not in an athletic sense, but like that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a different world. But anyway, sometimes athletes are like, well, why do 7 other people have the same deal that I'm doing? And you have to like break it down to them, explain, hey,
man.
I know everybody has been telling you that you're the man since you were 10. Okay.
Right. And you are.
Don't
get me wrong.
No doubt about it. But there are levels to this. There are several levels to this.
You're on tier 20. We'll say we're 20.
Right.
There's 100.
There's 100 of them. So yeah.
Yeah, that would be difficult. I mean, I think I've been in that position in the music industry. Like when you are, people can love your music and be like, damn, like, why aren't you guys bigger than you are? And it's like, because we are fucking dog shit at paying attention to our social media. Like we do what we can, but it's like, it really takes like a life of its own. You really have to have like a dedicated staff to create this content. Have you guys thought about branching out into that through the NIL with Limitless to kind of like started like a social media agency for the athletes?
Yeah. So
I don't understand. Here's one thing that's always fucking drove me insane. Like when I would be working on these edits, I'm like, I can't, even if I message the players, like I remember seeing players that would start where I would check where their Instagrams were when they first showed up, like the first year they're playing. By the time they leave, it's like that number is more than quintupled, right? It's significantly larger. And the things that they post, like like athletics would get upset the players were screen recording and then cropping and then posting videos on their own stuff because the university doesn't have like a listserv that it could just email this out to the people. Hey, so-and-so is in this clip. And so-and-so, make sure we send this to all these people plus the rest of the people that have to post it on the Penn State socials, whoever's running that side of things.
So that's the thing. Like so many things have developed since then. Like,
I know. I'm sure it's getting better. I hope it gets better. That should be the natural course of progression. But.
So we have like influencer now where like, they'll upload a bunch of photos. They're still stingy with the clips because, you know, technically the clips are Penn State's, regardless of whether or not you're in the clip. If you're in Beaver Stadium.
But to me, is that not synonymous? Like you're trying to grow the brand, the program. That is your recruiting.
For everybody. 100%.
Except for them. So what is the fucking holdup? Like I don't get it.
Listen, that's something I never grasped. There was one day, this is actually funny.
That's the next best thing you can do besides dragging them to Beaver Stadium for a whiteout is like letting them see some hype fucking footage of our players in practice or on the field.
It makes sense. And that's what the recruits want to see. That's exactly what they want to see.
Yeah, for sure.
And the interesting
I want to see behind the scenes too. Like we're in the age of transparency. That's all over. Like
100%.
I think like the idea of being the brooding artist, like the like you can't be like this like savage athlete that just lingers in the shadows and then comes out and runs his fucking play and he's a savage. He puts the fucking points up and he walks off. He signs something on the way out and that's it. It's like that doesn't exist. Like you have to be accessible. People want to they want to know.
Right.
Because we watch podcasts about everything, like true crime.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Yeah.
So why would we not like I just don't understand who it's gonna take getting like usurped and taken out of the equation to be in a position where we can get like more notoriety and exposure. I think like more transparency would be better for us in this. I mean, you want to guard some of it, right? I know like the wrestling program, they didn't want to do, we were trying to pitch them to do a show like Unrivaled for the wrestling team because why not? They're NCAA champions. Like, is it a new year? I guess this is the year.
Yep.
So like, but the coach was like, I think for him, it's like, you can't really have him in there talking about things that he's doing with like how he's training these athletes because you don't want to let any of that secret sauce off of it. But the idea being like, okay, but you have final say. If we put anything together and you don't want something in it, tell us to cut it out. We'll cut it out. We'll figure out a way. Even if we don't like that, we have to cut it out.
Right.
I had to do it. I have to do it all the time for Penn State. I did it. When we lost to Ohio State in I think 2018.
Yep.
I think it was an at Penn State. Or it was an at Ohio State game.
It was at Penn State 2018.
Okay, so maybe this is 2019.
Okay, at Ohio State.
Yeah. Or it could have been 2017, but I really feel like it was at 20. I think actually, I'm pretty sure it was 2017 because Saquon was still on the team.
Okay.
And so we lost the game, and I put together this highlight reel. It's like the minute intro to Unrivaled. And at the end, I had this clip of two players. I can't even remember who they were. Walking out of the field, and you could tell they are like discernibly fucking bummed. And we lost by like 2 points or something like that, something absurd. And so, or 1 point maybe even.
It was one.
Yeah. I think we lost like 2 games by a combined total of like 3 points or 4 points for the year that year. So I had this clip of these two players. They're walking out into the tunnel to exit the stadium, and another player just comes up behind him and throws his fucking arm around him. I was like, that's your fucking hero shot because you don't want people thinking that they're walking out of this and like you can't do 70 and sunny when we lost to our biggest rival at their place and by this such a small margin. It's like the fan service, you're not doing fan service at all right there because you're like you're not going to fool the fan base into not feeling the heart wrench of the loss last second. You know, like give them something that's real and so I've always had a problem with like that mentality of it and I hope that's something that shifts as some new blood gets in there, younger blood gets in there and is like, hey, why are we still doing this way? And that's by and large, like the problem with an institution like Penn State, any institution that large that is like steeped in its traditions and the way it wants to do things. There's no scenario where you're going to get them until people start getting out of their positions and new blood gets in there where you can get rid of it. Yeah.
I mean, I even think, you know, not to name drop or anything, but like even since Pat Kraft has come on as the AD, I'm already seeing so many changes, just NIL specifically.
Yeah, and good ones.
And good ones that are benefiting the school and the athlete. And I think that's what people got to understand.
Yeah.
When the athlete wins, the school also wins in turn. It's a natural progression here.
And I think, and they're coming from the perspective of like, okay, well, we're the institution. You wanted to play for us. These are our values. It's like, okay, you can still implement that.
Right.
But how you're putting it out there. Right. We're in a new landscape. You can't stay the same as you did.
And even then, I get that side of it, but this is 2022.
Right.
The transfer portal is very real.
Very real.
The type of athletes that are coming to Penn State, regardless of what sport they're playing, are probably elite prospects in their class, and realistically can probably go wherever they want to go to play.
Right.
So Penn State is either going to adjust, or those kids are going to pick different schools, and it's that simple. Yeah. So I think Penn State will adjust. I think they're already making. They're
starting to. We're seeing the thralls of it right now. Like the gears are starting to turn.
No doubt about it.
Man. So now that you're coming up on, you figure February will be your first year.
Yep.
Anything you would have changed about from when you started to where you are now?
With Limitless, or just since retiring? Yeah. Man, I would probably build in time. I would sit myself down at the beginning and say, hey, this is going to be fun. It's going to be great. You're going to learn a lot. But you need to build in time to just do what Aeneas wants to do.
Aeneas time.
No doubt. And Aeneas time is valuable. And I've since found ways to do that. But just initially, it's such a grind. And for me, I got done with football and was so excited to be done. I'm like, finally, I'll have free time. I'll be able to do what I want. Right. And of course, I'm bored in 2 weeks and I'm like just full-fledged diving into something. So
but this is a hell of a thing to dive into.
Absolutely.
Though.
And I think it's valuable. But, the lesson that I've learned, not just with football, but now with Limitless, is that if I'm not taking care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally, then nothing else is going to feel like an accomplishment or feel worthwhile.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson that you kind of have to learn. Everybody goes through that at some point and kind of figures that out.
Do you have a hard time sort of like, I mean, personally for me, like, if I look back at my accolades, like I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, I have done a lot. Like that's pretty crazy.
That's the thing.
But I don't think about it.
You don't think about it.
But I'll be bummed tomorrow for not doing something that I wanted to do. I decided I wanted to do 2 weeks ago.
No doubt.
And it'll
about
hold me down worse than
100%.
Anything that I've done that has taken me around the world or 100%. This, that, and the other thing. It's like, why am I like this?
That's the thing. So like, obviously you never, so it's such a conundrum because football teaches you, Penn State teaches you, hey, don't bask in your accomplishments too much. We got to keep moving forward and keep accomplishing.
There's something to that. There's merit to that.
Absolutely. There is merit to it. But what I've also learned in life, now that football, the thing that I loved most initially in my life has been since taken away, is that life is going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
So when moments come, you better take a second and appreciate that moment because so much work goes into accomplishing these things. Yeah. And, it's okay to be excited for yourself. It's okay to appreciate, oh man, I worked hard. I deserve this moment. Let me take a second and appreciate it. And not that I didn't do that. I still look back positively on all my experiences, but it goes quick, man. It rolls on you.
Do they think about doing like an NIL awards?
Yeah. Yes. They actually they do like an NIL summit. So they are doing those.
Okay. All right.
And that's where they do. It's like an award show. A bunch of the biggest NIL stars from around the country. They fly them out. Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Do we do anything regionally, like locally for us? Like, do we do it like a Penn State NIL awards kind of thing?
We should.
So what I'm thinking is, I look at like the NIL, all the different NIL agencies that have probably popped up all over the country in the last year and a half.
Yep.
And then I think about like cryptocurrencies.
Yep.
Millions of them. There's more coins than there are. I mean, there's more varieties of coins and companies than there are like coins that you can buy almost. Right. And so it's like, I wonder the long-term ramifications of that are sooner or later the cream rises at the top, right? Yep. And so it's like somebody is going to capitalize on these opportunities to kind of grow and do these unique and interesting things at a local level that's going to be like Limitless as the NIL agency. Great. Can there be like a Limitless athletics social media agency as well that's there, that's kind of baked in and can kind of like get fed in from this, and then I think locally we've got We Are NIL, we've got Limitless, we've got Success with Honor. I don't know all of them, but I've had to do things for the three of them already, so I know that those are three of them. Say there's 5 more in the next year. Yeah. Somebody's going to have to rise at the top and be the Penn State NIL awards presented by Limitless.
Right.
That kind of a thing. And so I'm very curious to see that how it grows and how it develops. It's really interesting that this is like all shit that we're kind of like, we're watching it develop and there hasn't been anything for it before. So we're just really like, how does this play out?
It's live action, man. It's fun to watch while it develops. I think, on that note, like just even with Limitless, there are so many things that we do all under one roof. We're still a startup. as things develop, as things expand and grow, I think it'd be really cool to have, a limitless social media aspect of what we do. And then, we even talked about doing a mentorship program where it's like specifically, big time professional athletes and broadcasters and big time finance moguls coming in and talking to the athletes. And there's so many things that we can develop and make different branches of. But again, Limitless, Success with Honor, different groups, they're all still just, getting their feet under them and trying to develop
right.
So the next 5 years, man, so much is going to happen.
Yeah, man, fortune's going to favor the bold. That's going to be the thing. About it. You guys are going to have the opportunity to really like launch forward into new avenues. And I'm hoping that like, I'm a dot connector and I'm also like an idea person. I like it. I think what I love about ideas is that they're a dime a dozen.
Yep.
So I'm always like, if you're brainstorming, throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Yeah, like seriously. You're going to find some stuff by just not holding yourself back on the idea phase of things. And so I think I've trained my brain over the years to be better at, by my standards, better for me at creating just ideas off of ideas. Yeah. Like, so when I hear things that you're doing, I'm like, I love to be a person who's like, what about this? Could you do this? Is this an option? And that's probably something I picked up with some of my mentors. Like I've got a good couple of mentors in my life. One of them is this guy, Jeff Hoffman. He started Priceline in the early 90s, and he's sort of been a mentor for my guitar player, Aaron, who passed away, and he introduced me to him, and now he's been mentoring me, and we talk. And it's just the way that like I can be like, oh, we're a band and we're doing this, and like, how do we get a Grammy? Like, you just produced this album that won Best Jazz in 2014. Like, how do we get Best Rock Album? Like, what do we got to do? Who do we got to talk to that Like, how do we, what's on the next step of things that we can do? And when we would sit down and we would have these like meetings with him and we would get together, we'd all drive out to like Akron or wherever we had to go to meet him. We'd go to like a Cheesecake Factory and sit down and just have like a 3-hour lunch where we'd sit down and just brainstorm and talk shop. And just that idea of not limiting yourself when you're in the idea and creation phase of things. You guys are going to come into this phase where you're going to have some sincere opportunities to do some wild, weird shit, take stabs at things, fail forward, find some things that work and some things that don't, find things that don't work this way, but are going to work better in this way. Like I want to be involved just because like I like seeing how it's growing. Yeah. But I'm also like one of those things where sometimes it's good to have an idea. Sometimes there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's good to have a guy who kind of can come in and do the idea phase of things. Yeah. And so if you guys are already the movers and shakers of the NIL world right now and you're doing what you're doing, having these moguls and former Penn State athletes and other athletes that are just in general interested in going around to other NIL agencies and having these sort of like not booster events, but like, seminars really where you're like able to kind of like talk to these people. That's the real world value that you can give any person, period, let alone an athlete. So I'm just really, I'm amazed that like your path is taking you here. Did you see it taking you here?
No, this is not at all what I thought I'd be doing. Actually.
What did you go to? What was your major?
I was a broadcaster. So,
So we talked about that too. Yeah. I was like, so like, what are you trying to do? You're like, I'm trying to do everything. Like, I don't know how to do a lot of it. And I know that. So I'm I'm digging in.
But again, like, I hate to keep going back to football, but when you're a football player, when I was a football player, I just was completely took a deep dive into that. And that's all I was doing. That's all I was focused on for at least 10 to 12 hours of every single day for a full year. So it's hard to really understand what I wanted to do. I knew I had a background of broadcasting through my family. So I thought, okay, maybe if I, pay attention in class and do my best, I could figure out how to do that and make that a career. I still like broadcasting. I do the show with Keith and Chris, but also like I'm doing ESPN radio as well. So that's been fun. But, again,
what are you doing for ESPN radio?
We do a pre and post game show at Beaver Stadium every week. That's awesome. And it's been a blast. I love it.
How's it growing? Like, it's with ESPN?
It's with the ESPN affiliate. So Steve Jones, I'm sure you know that name.
Yeah. At WPSU, I don't know if he ever had an office. He had like kind of a cubicle that was like in with the batch of interns, and he would just come in. Like, I love Steve Jones to death. Like, I'm sure some people could like love or hate him for like his commentary. He just would come in and like shit on the interns and like in a fun and playful way, and just had like the most absurd jokes. It's like he knows he's almost like this invincible figure when it comes to Penn State broadcast. Yeah, for sure. He told me he has a studio for Learfield in his house. Like he doesn't even have to leave if he wants to do a remote broadcast. I was like, that's fucking baller. That's awesome. And he's probably had it for years, like way in advance of other people doing. Yeah, dude, he definitely is.
Different level.
I should definitely have him on. He's
he's
a fucking G. I love him.
So Steve actually, I remember being on the bus out the Outback Bowl on the way to the game. He's sitting on the back of the bus. Him and Jack Ham would ride over with us to games.
Oh, really?
And I turned around in my seat. I'm like, hey, Mr. Jones, this is my last game. I don't know if you have anything for me. I don't know if you'll let me just follow you around.
Right.
But I want to get into broadcasting, and he has been absolutely killer for me.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome.
I go on the show sometimes, just kind of shoot the shit with them.
So do you guys have, is it video or just radio?
So I do radio. We do some video stuff as well, but it's primarily radio. Pre- and post-game show is all radio, which is cool because I want radio experience too.
Yeah,
my mom's
definitely
been telling me for years, face for radio. Stick to it. Don't go TV. So I'm
you're like, you're my mom.
Right. Why are you hating on me? You made me.
You did this.
You understand?
I'm 50% you.
Right. But no, so that's been good. But as far as being an agent, being involved in NIL, to be honest with you, I wanted to have nothing to do with college sports when college sports got done. But the opportunity made so much sense. And now that I'm in it, I'm so thankful that the opportunity was presented to me because it's kind of kept me close to college sports. I still care. All my teammates still play for Penn State football. They're all my buddies still. I know them. So it keeps me attached in a healthy way.
Yeah, there'll be a come to Jesus moment in like 4 or 5 years when you don't know any of the athletes on the team.
Person on the team. It's coming.
You're like, who's this? You're the old guy all of a sudden. You're like, what the fuck?
I'm reading through rosters. Yeah.
I don't. Is that his brother? I don't know. I feel like I'm curious, like what you think the ambition for you is moving forward. Like, this is good. I think to me, I love these unintended consequences, like happy accidents of like, okay, you end up on the couch with Sean's and now flash forward 10 months later, you're doing this.
Right.
It's like, that's awesome because if you do love it and you're particularly good at it and you find it to be in some way a calling for you, it's like you've got sincere value to bring to these athletes in the program and the NIL at large for just the future to come. What do you think? What's like the dream plan for you? Like, what would you like? I know you're close to college football now, but like in the broadcasting sense, since that was your degree, do you feel like you'll kind of like circle back to that and focus more? I mean, you're doing it already, like by doing the ESPN radio and the Players Show. Like to me, those are more tangible, make sense, like mediums for going about doing it. If you want to be a broadcast person and you don't have the ABC or the Fox affiliate plug to get you out there on the field doing it that way or whatever.
Right.
But
I would just say, I still to this day don't know exactly where any of it leads. I'm not going to sit here and lie because we're on camera. We have pretty lights that I have it all figured out. I don't. But there's been a lot of learning through both avenues, through the broadcasting and the NIL stuff. And I do really enjoy broadcasting. I enjoy covering games. But to be honest with you, this is what I enjoy most, just having candid conversations, being authentic. Not that you can't be authentic on the radio.
Right.
But there's a certain way you go about,
conversationally talking to somebody. Colloquialism, whenever I'm like having a conversation with you, this is not I know who the audience is and that's who they're listening to it. Yeah, my goal is never to get caught up in thinking about who the fuck is listening to this whatsoever. Like I want to be able to be me and enjoy having conversations with people that I enjoy. 100%. Like getting to know and also like observing what they do.
Exactly. So I think no matter what that is in media and NIL, I want an opportunity to be able to live my life passionately and be Aeneas Hawkins. And whatever that looks like, I would love to do some individual media stuff. I've been grinding on TikTok.
I'm going to follow you on TikTok. I'm going to have to follow you.
Check me out on TikTok. But again, just giving people the authentic version
of
myself.
What's your TikTok?
It's just my name, Aeneas Hawkins.
Oh, lucky.
Aeneas Hawkins.
I got my first, middle, and last name because it's like I can't get John, J-O-N, and Baker for anything ever. Okay. But John Blair Baker is like somehow more regal, I think, sounding. So I'm like, all right, I'll roll with that. And so that's like all my socials. But
I don't think there is another Aeneas Hawkins combo of a name.
What a fucking... When he said your name was Aeneas, I was like, that's fucking epic. Like, I was like, is he a Greek god? Like, what the fuck? So it sounds like you got to do the Limitless podcast. I really think that that's like an easy next step is like the ability to do this and sort of like shell away at all like the mystique and the mystery of what is really kind of going on with NIL. I think like by just having these conversational moments, 100%. Like I'm getting a little bit out of you that I'm sure is valuable in terms of like what anybody that's doing anything with NIL might want to hear.
Yeah.
And I mean, not even just from the NIL side, like they want that culture, right? Like if you're in an NIL agency and you're just small and you're in, TCU or something like that, you want to be able to see how other people are doing it. Like the Blue White Player Show, my reason for wanting to sign on to it, I was like, it's the first one. Like there's no other player shows like this. So I'm like, I want to do this. I want to set the bar, and I don't care where we get with when the first episode launches, but I want to keep improving. Like whatever we can do to make it better and better, let's do that. But in doing, in being a part of Limitless, you really are like forging this new territory within the first year and a half of this really even being a thing that can be reconciled with. So it's like, I think like, I look at you and I'm envious because you're in a landscape that is just fucking, the ground is being built in front of you, and you can pretty much do whatever you want within the parameters of like what you have to follow rules. But I think like if you have this idea of doing a podcast, like we should, for sure. I want to get like, I think even just you and Sean hosting it and having like a roster, a rotating, 2 people from the team to come in and have discussions about things that they're dealing with. You could do that as like a lockup on like a Friday or whatever, and have the episode ready to go by Monday, and just have this like going out there week after week after week. Cause it's like your audience isn't other NIL agencies. It's also that, but it's not just that. It's also, some JV football player who's like, I want to know more about this. This is the top NIL podcast that, is being put out there. And so I want to hear what they're saying. I'm going to listen to their back episodes and conversations about whatever. And you could keep them, relegated to certain topics so that you could isolate them that way. Right. Or they could just be free form. And I think that like you were one of these people that just conversationally works out really, really well at just like, you can steamroll through any conversation. I watch you with the other athletes. I watch you like whenever you're around like just champs and you're talking to people. And I'm like, this is a guy who can be put in a room fucking anywhere, and it's never sink or swim. It's always swim. Like he's going to be fine.
No doubt. I appreciate that. I think I joke with Sean, obviously I want him to play as long as he wants to, and I hope all
right. Yeah, the running jokes.
I can't wait for his career to be done because, again, a Limitless podcast, being able to have the time to sit down and do that, I mean, there's so much more that we can do.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. We should have it after the season's over, post bowl game, when he gets a fucking second to breathe. We should have him on when okay, now.
Right.
Goose for Haba. Yeah. We're doing we're on the back end now. Now what are we doing? Now all my focus can be here. Yeah. He's the kind of, the media days that we've done with Mike the Mailman for the show, we always had, like Sean is like probably he's like the only dude at the entire thing. Some of them are laughing, some of them smile here and there, but he's the only person who is constantly just like, I would feel bad on media day being Sean Clifford.
No
that would be the worst fucking spot to be. Yeah, because he's like, I got to have all these very surreal conversations with people. And then Mike Millman's like, what's your favorite cookie? Has your mom been sending you cookies? You said she wouldn't send you cookies last year. He's like, don't put that out there. He's like, my mom sends cookies. Like he's got personality, he's got charisma, and it's not an accident that he ended up where he did. You know?
And I'm excited. People, he gets a lot of hate sometimes from people. And sometimes.
But you say you're logged into his Instagram.
I'm logged into his Instagram, so I see all the hate too. I can't imagine,
dude. Like he's like mid game, first quarter playing, and his fucking.
But like literally
follows and likes and shit talk is basically like.
So when they have away games, it's actually like a fun game I play where if he throws an incompletion or maybe he throws an interception, I'll like flip my phone over and like to start counting in my head up to start time and how long it takes for people to start commenting. Right. And it's never over 25 seconds before the first one rolls in. And people are just
somebody's just waiting, just seething, ready to fucking post. They got it typed out. They're like, he'll do it. I'll wait.
Right, I'll wait. He'll eventually mess up. Boom, got him. But no, my point being, people know Sean Clifford, the quarterback. And in my opinion, he's done a damn good job, especially in some tough situations. No doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. But Sean Clifford off of the field is significantly better than he is on the field. He's a great leader. He's a funny guy. He's smart. He's business-oriented. There's so many different things that he is capable of going and achieving.
He seems it. He really seems it. Like, honestly, like just seeing him in interview situations that I've been there to film, you can just tell. There's just a certain way certain people carry themselves that kind of are the poker tell. Yep. Like you're like, oh, this guy's the real fucking deal. Like if he's not playing football, he's gonna be fine. Yeah, like he's got a million other chick.
He'll be good.
Yeah, he's gonna be great.
We'll look back at this episode in 10 years and be like, man, like we didn't even realize how successful he was gonna be in whatever he wanted to do.
You should. I feel like another thing that would be really great to do. I know that you guys get media training at Penn State.
Yep.
What's that like?
Oh man.
What are they? What is like the general synopsis of like what media training really does for an athlete?
Yeah. So again, just the real answer. This was my evaluation of media day or media training. They basically tell you the media is not your friend.
Right.
They are there to get information out of you. We don't give the media any information. So they basically teach you how to kind of go around.
Yeah, how to skirt around the I see you said this thing that's really damning. Thanks for throwing me on the spot for that.
Right. So they kind of teach you how to talk without actually saying anything.
But did they do anything? I wonder if they do anything for the athletes, for the fucking future Sean Cliffords that are gonna throw an interception in that first quarter, and then
and learning
there's another Aeneas Hawkins flipping a phone over somewhere.
Right. Yeah, so there's definitely that part of it too. So they kind of teach you how to navigate that and some of the feelings that can arise out of that, because that's very real. Like, people don't realize
competitive athletes. Somebody's like, oh, he fucking sucks. Fire Franklin and here's Clifford. This like
exactly, and these people again are dedicating so many hours and so much effort, blood, sweat, and tears, literally, into being the best product that they can be.
Yeah,
and you think. Who do you think you are to log into Instagram, make a mean comment because you think you care about the football team more than Sean Clifford does?
Right. You think you care more than the person who's going to, one, have to deal with the scrutiny, but two, fucking has to throw the fucking ball.
He's the guy. He wants to win as bad as anybody. Coach Franklin wants to win more than anybody. So it's interesting. But again, and then also to your point, but
like the mental health aspect, like the shit that they got to read, that's that's scary. Cause like,
no doubt about it.
You think about an athlete who's like extremely competitive and then like just won. What was his name? Who filled in for the Iowa for Clifford last year?
Taquan Roberson.
I felt
one of our clients.
So fucking. He's one of your clients.
One of our clients. Yeah.
Awesome for you guys for having him in, because
absolutely.
I felt so bad. I was like, you can't put anyone in that position.
No doubt.
And expect them to fucking thrive. Right. Like, what did you want? Like, this was a worst case scenario and a very strong argument for why we need depth on the roster.
Yeah.
So it's like, we got some hard answers that we didn't mean to ask questions to, but we got them.
Yeah.
I felt so bad because I was like, the internet was just ablaze. I was like, that kid could kill himself.
Right.
Like, you would never want that.
That's the thing. So this is my thing. This is serious to me. Again, mental health is very real, and it's not just real in the world outside of football. These are kids. These are 18 to 22-year-old men that are coming in. They're playing football. They're giving everything they have, and most of the time,
they're men in the legal sense, but they're growing, man. They're
in a very, very vulnerable. They're young. They're vulnerable. They're learning about themselves, and they're listening to what people tell them. And any other 18-year-old would take serious offense to half the things that people are bold enough to comment on Instagram or tweet about, people or write articles about. So I don't think people consider that sometimes when they open their mouths. But again, being teammates with guys like Taquan, and it's not just Taquan. Guys are getting put in tough situations.
I didn't mean so I apologize for that.
Taquan's my guy. He's not going to have a problem with this. But again, at some point, you're going to fail as an athlete. It's just going to happen. You're playing against a bunch of elite talent.
And that's a part of the fucking gambit, man. Like, you're going to have a bad show if you're a musician.
No doubt.
You're going to have a bad investment as a company.
This is life. This is still life.
Sure, but man, the stakes for fucking...
It's ridiculous. But again, what are we doing for student athletes today to help them navigate their mental health? What are we doing to equip them for those situations? And again, not to, toot Limitless's horn, but that's a part of what we're trying to implement with the athletes we represent, because this is very real. It's
a shame that it's only if they're represented by you guys in that thing. Like, it'd almost be worth having you guys do like a college athlete seminar somewhere in DC and, pitching it out there for like alumni to send athletes from all over the fucking country to one place to have these discussions with them. Because I feel like it's great if they're represented by an NIL agency that has the wherewithal to think about something like that. But if that's not every NIL agency's focus, that should be a resource training thing that's put into the media training side as like an addendum almost to be like, look, also, but I feel like it can exist at the collegiate level. Like, athletics can't have their hands on that.
Right.
So you're going to need to have the mentorship role side of things, which I would liken to be more of like an NIL sort of an agency, like, platform or something like that, to be able to educate and just kind of guide these kids through this. Cause that's, I know that they're men cause they're 18, they're legal. They can buy guns and lottery tickets and porno. Like they're men, but like mentally, like men don't even peak in our brains stop growing at around 27.
Right.
So like at that whole time, you're just a fucking sponge absorbing it. And I would never in a million years like wish on myself to. I'm glad I went to college before I started doing music, because if I had started doing music first and had to entertain being in an industry that is fucking savage and cutthroat as an 18-year-old, I'd have never made it. I'd have never made it. It's just, there's no scenario. I can't imagine on the athletic scale of things, there's competitions and like, there's trophies. There's like, there's actual like
it's
severe.
Surreal. Yeah. It's surreal how it's all set up. And again, like it's not just football players that are dealing with it. There are swimmers who may not have visibility, but everything is so performance based.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're just not always going to perform at the highest level in anything you do as a human being. So why is the standard so much higher for a bunch of young, impressionable men? And I think, again, like we talk about football players, it's easy to turn on the TV and see these Greek god-built characters muscled up.
Right.
And you think that they're further along mentally and physically and as people than what they really are. These are kids.
Yeah.
They're very young, fresh out of high school, competing on the biggest stage, millions of viewers.
Yeah.
And they mess up.
Yeah. And they need to not be castrated for it.
Absolutely.
Did you see what happened with the volleyball team? They had there was like a leaked nude series or whatever. Yeah. I didn't see it, but I heard about it. And then the thing that I heard that I loved about this story was that I think that obviously the internet was going to go ablaze of a bunch of, collegiate women are group nude together and just like embracing their femininity or their womanhood or whatever. But what I really loved about that story was not that had happened, but that the response to that happening was like the next night, the next game that they had played sold out the fucking crowd. They packed the whole house. And I was like, these are people that are there in solidarity for the fact that they don't want to see these girls getting slut shamed. And that's like, I can't, like, as bad as it is to be a male athlete who fucks up in a game, I would never want to be like in anything where there's like a woman, a female athlete that is like, just look at like the Venus Williams and all the shit that they've been through. Like it's everything that guys have to do. Women, what's the quote that women have to do backwards and in high heels? Like it almost like, it's hard not to empathize with that because it's like, damn, as hard as it is to be an athlete who has to endure a fuck up and then the audience appreciation of what that ends up looking like, I would never in a million years, I would not want to be a woman with social media and the backlash that comes from everything. It's
ridiculous. I mean, I think about like a Simone Biles, who I think she was at the Olympics and
she checked out for mental health reasons.
That's
fucking, to me, I was like, baller. Right. That's fucking sick.
Right. And if you're a person, you're a high level musician. You understand what it's like to perform under pressure. And
that's very, very sweet of you.
But seriously, you understand that grind and what that takes. As an athlete, I understand it. But for people, I mean, people were tearing her down. They had all kinds of things to say about Simone Biles. They had things to say about Naomi Osaka.
Bitch, you get out there.
Hey, go do it. Right. Yeah, since you're so tough. Yeah. Go do it. But, it's definitely 10x for female athletes, for sure.
I have no idea how, like, and it's also the culture of like online world, social media, all of that is kind of like driving and changing and shifting the way we sort of perceive things. Like, I ran a podcast for these two girls yesterday that are interns for Happy Valley Song Lab, and they were talking about it. They talked about Gilmore Girls and like all kinds of stuff. It was like, this is more of like a philosophical podcast. Mine is. Theirs is more of like a topical, like not genred podcast, but like sort of like a current events kind of podcast, like a sort of like a social kind of puff piece oriented discussion about current events and the social climate of what's happening out there. Pete Davidson came up. They're like, have you seen he's dating so and so? It's like, and I'm watching that and I'm like, their observation, like they're hilarious, by the way. These girls are so funny. The podcast is going to be called Thanks for Listening. I hope people check it out.
There you go.
When it comes out. I don't know when. I'm kind of helping them develop it because like I think that they have the potential because they have the drive. They want to do it. And they were like, hey, were you really excited about doing this today? And I was like, hell yeah, I was. I was like, you have no idea how hard it is to find people that say they want to do something and then put their fucking money where their mouth is and show up and do the damn work.
No doubt about it.
And like athletes don't have that problem as much because it's a little bit more regimented. There's systems in place that kind of guide you into show up, getting your reps and doing that.
Right.
But in the creative space and like the media space, it is not like that. No. So 80% of all podcasts that fail after 3 episodes. They stop after 3 episodes. I'm one of those statistics. I did one. We made 3 episodes, released 1, and then never released the other 2.
Me too. I've done that before. Go ahead.
Right. Yep. So I'm like, cool, par for the course, fail forward. I'm like, all right, I see why this didn't work. I love both of the dudes that were on it. But I was like, it's not sustainable because we're all over the place and it's not as easy to get them together. They wanted to drink on the podcast, which I was like, yeah, like, let's do that. Turns out a 2-hour, 3-hour long podcast after a few drinks, you get real loose. And I was like, this is maybe not what I actually want to do. And I don't suffer from being under the NIL deal, but name, image, and likeness applies to everybody, really.
Yeah.
So like part of my brand or whatever it is that I want to do, I was like, I really want to be heard in a more profound way. Yeah. So like, this isn't going to work. So with this podcast, I was like, the next metric is the following like 19 to 20% of podcasts that make it past that 3 episode mark stop at episode 20. Mm-hmm. So 21 is the magic number now. Uh-huh. So my first guest was my buddy Jason. He runs the Happy Valley Song Lab. And he's the person I first told that I wanted to do the podcast. He's the dude I told the name of the podcast to. Like, as I'm like, this is my brainchild earlier this year, probably around February was probably when I started. I came up with the name and started spitballing it. So it's funny that like that era of time was like this beginnings period.
Right.
But like as I get here and I'm like, I'm on episode 3 now, and this is probably my favorite one so far that is not music related. But as I'm like moving forward, I'm like, damn, like, I want to make it to that 21st episode. And so I look at it from the mindset of like, how do you accomplish that? Like, what's the actual mentality that goes into doing that? What is really required of me other than showing up, being consistent, getting the right guests in? Like, I want my first 21 guests to be in-person guests, and then I'll branch out and I'll start doing like Riverside FM and stuff like that so that I can do guests remotely. And then I have access to a larger pool of potential guests. Right. And from like all different industries. Like, I'd love to have my mentor Jeff on. I'd like to have, some of the musicians that I toured with on, because I believe that like there are so many parallels between all of these different industries, and you really don't know them until you hear them conversationally taking place. It's like, oh yeah, you've got this going on. That's kind of like it is in music. Yep. If we could draw more of those, connect more of those lines between those, parallels, I think people would see that none of this shit is easy. So if you've got this dream or this ambition or this idea, the goal shouldn't be, how can I do this and make this as painless as possible? Right. It should be, how can I survive the pain I'm definitely going to have to endure to get through doing this? That's you put in your reps and like literally put your body on the line. Yeah. Both feet you had to have surgeries on? Just the one foot twice. Just the one twice? Yep. I don't want to wish that on anybody. The ACL was in there. Yep. The tibia, you said, like none of those are the good ones. No, like don't get those ones. Good ones. Yeah, if you could elect on a menu, a la carte, those are not the ones you want to get. Yeah, go for the soup of the day. Yeah, but like soup of the day. That's funny. It's really inspiring and encouraging to see that, like, when I first met you and you were like, yeah, broadcast major, and we were just on Monday when we were joking around about, doing a comedy skit, like. Sean has a really good personality. So like this plays, if he signs off on this, I'm telling you, I will fucking produce this and do this. But like that idea of him just waking up, checking his phone, seeing the fucking alerts, it's game day, game day Indiana, game day this, and just track through the whole season in a way where you get to see the Groundhog Day sort of repetition of like the shit that he has to go through and has to hear. Like that to me is comical, but it's also like poignant. Like it's like, hey, this is a joke, but also you motherfuckers are doing this. Right. Like you're the ones that are real. Like, oh, Clifford, blah. Like there starts to become this sort of equilibrium that takes place. Like the pendulum swings both ways. And so like, obviously Sean's having a killer year. So like the pendulum is more in his favor this year. And somehow still people are finding a way to bitch about things. It's ridiculous. Like, bro, what do you want? Like, what do you really want? It seems like there's this unattainable standard that you're asking for. And they don't really kind of understand that, like, as an athlete, and I was a more active athlete in my youth. In my 30s now, I'm not as athletically oriented because I'm more creatively oriented. Right. And I made my peace with that shift in my mindset a long time ago, because I was like, yeah, it turns out I do need to go to the gym. Right. I don't love doing it. Right. And I'm sure nobody really loves doing it, but I know some motherfuckers that love doing it. My younger brother is probably your size. He's like 240, just stacked. He muscled up. Right. I'm like, we're not the same fucking genetics. Like, who the fuck are you? And like, there's this equilibrium that kind of takes place where people are eventually going to figure out like, okay, I can't spout this shit off online. I can't just be talking this kind of trash all the time. One, just hoping that, I mean, I'm sure Sean doesn't see 99.9% of it, but if even the 0.01% gets in there and gets into his head and makes him have a bad fucking day, it's like, did you win there? Like who won? Who won that in exchange? Like, yeah.
I think that's half the battle is just most of the people who are commenting to not just to Sean, but to athletes in general, right? At creators in general who are just.
I'm gonna write him an apology letter. I keep saying him and then throwing him under the bus. I'm like, see that thing he had to deal with? He's like, yeah, motherfucker, I know, I know.
No, that's funny. But most of them are just ignorant to what's actually taking place. So again, using Sean as the example, finding that's kind of a part of what I'm passionate about and what we're trying to do with like some of these sketches we're going to do with Sean down the line is just finding ways to lightheartedly shed light on what the reality of his life is like or what they're dealing with or some of those emotions can really be. Because I think when most people see it, when most people understand it, I don't think most of them are that malicious to where they'll continue to pour on to not just Sean, but other athletes, other creators, other people like that. And it's just finding ways to make people less ignorant about some of these topics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also, like, I think the added benefit of eventually, like, augmented reality kind of coming around and people being able to actually see, like, facial exchange. Right. It's like, I'm not going to say anything fucking I wouldn't say it to somebody in person. Why would I say it online? Right. And that is, like, I guess, sort of like a golden rule that we are hoping that we will, eventually subscribe to and I'll follow. But until then, it is kind of the fucking Wild West out there with social media, the NIL, as an athlete, as a musician, as you're focusing on transparency and trying to be available to people to like sort of be invested into your world and whatever it is you do, whether you're an artist, a painter, a tattoo artist, whatever. And so I just feel like until we get there, there's really got to be this like come to Jesus moment where we're like, hey, can we agree? Maybe we don't attack. Like
maybe we don't attack people's character.
Right, for sure. I mean, like, I'm sure you can attest, like football is a sport, but there is so much more, I would say, philosophy that goes into it than technique. And that's, I found that in martial arts. I found that in a lot of things in disciplines in my life. But like you are able to tangibly take a lot of what you learn from the philosophy side of like your training as an athlete and apply that to your life
immediately. Yeah.
Do you feel like what do you feel like you're applying more now that you maybe didn't think you were ever going to?
Yeah, man. I thought I kind of was living in this facade where, showing up, doing hard things and being consistent was just a football thing. Like no, like seriously,
feels like it.
So I remember as a football player, I'm like, man, nobody else understands how I feel every day. That's a lie. It's not the reality. People who are working hard, people who are trying to build anything, it takes a certain level of consistency and discipline to get from point A to point B. So, I think that was the thing that surprised me most about life outside of football, but it's a valuable lesson. Like, how do you show up every day when you don't feel like showing up? How do you continue to push forward? How do you move when the motivation may not be there anymore? You're not going to always wake up and feel like, even with things you love, you're not going to feel like going after it and doing it.
Have you had any of those days?
I've had plenty of them.
Recently?
Most days are those days.
Like,
honestly.
Today.
Literally today. My alarm went off and I did not feel like getting up. But again.
Yeah, gotta show up.
You gotta show up. I always love saying it used to be the quote on my phone on the screensaver, discipline will take you places that motivation can't go.
Yeah, that's the gospel right there.
That's the truth. No doubt about it. And I think, and then you kind of talk about, being there's a poem I love called Man in the Arena, where it's about blocking outside noise. And it's about the person who's
I wonder if that's where they got the Tom Brady Hulu special or whatever they did.
I think that's literally where they got it. Yeah.
Man in the Arena. Okay, all right.
It's a well-known poem.
My buddy Kenan did the motion graphics for like the title design for that. Yeah, Sweet. He does a bunch of stuff. He just signed on with Bungie to do a bunch of stuff for like the new Destiny game.
You know everybody, don't you?
I got people in all corners. I got fingers in pots for sure.
Respect.
Shout out to Kenan. He's a real one.
There you go. But yeah,
So Man in the Arena.
Man in the Arena, again, just, there's a lot of outside noise. And that really can kind of be regardless of what level you're at or how well people know you. It might be noise that you hear from your family or people that you think are your loved ones and friends. And it might be people that doubt you. It might be people that tell you, hey, your idea sucks. Don't waste your time on it. And you have to find ways to convince yourself and to be internally focused enough to still show up and do what you're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah.
So I love that. Those are both lessons I learned in football.
We know what's sneaky about that is that like sometimes it's the people you love and you really do trust they don't mean to discourage you.
Right. But a lot of times it's not intentional.
I would say sometimes it is if they want you to, if you've got like a controlling parent archetype and they like want you to go a certain avenue or whatever instead. And so, I mean, to those people, I feel like the only thing you can really say is like, look, man, like nobody gets to walk this life but you.
Yeah.
Like you're the only one who gets to take your last breath and go into that grave. You go by yourself. Like you know, nobody gets to go with you. You don't get to take any of the shit with you. So it's like you have to make peace with the life that you live and choose to like forge for yourself. And it's important that you do it well and by the standards that you could say whenever you punch that final, you know, ticket that you can say this was a life well lived.
Yep, absolutely.
I feel like there's no real sort of like way to reconcile like how difficult it is to do that getting up and showing up thing.
Yeah.
Because that, like, to me, I love my mom to death. I don't think she's never done anything but encourage me. When I went to Penn State and I picked my major, I double majored in East Asian Studies and Japanese.
Okay.
And she was like, "What are you gonna do with that? Like, it's because you're into martial arts. Like, what is like? Where do you care? What's this gonna do?" And then when I got out, all my job offers were like government contracts. So like NSA, CIA, like Bureau of Diplomatic Security. Like I was like, these are all 8-year contract positions. I'm 23. I don't know if this is like what I want to do.
Right. That's a big commitment.
For the next 8 years. And so I took a year off and did some soul searching. And in that year was when I found music. And then through music, I found the entertainment industry. So very similar to you, where like, you know, broadcast journalism, you still do a little bit of it. You know, I kept up with my Japanese for a little while. It's harder when you don't have people to talk to.
Yep.
And then, you know, I get into music and my mom's like, "What are you doing? 2 years in music. You already got your degrees. Like, when are you going to put those to use?" And like, she's not trying to be discouraging or disparaging in any way. She's like, you know, she just wants to see me succeed and thrive and do better.
Right.
And I was in a place where I was more asking the question, like, what is success going to look like to me? Is that going to be a dollar amount? Is that going to be a job that I work that I love more? Or is it just going to be showing up and doing the things that I want that are fulfilling to me as often as I can? In a way that fulfill me, you know, spiritually, soulfully, you know, and, you know, within 2 years, I'm on the Vans Warped Tour, and then I'm on for the next 2 years, and I'm traveling all over the country, and then I'm traveling all over the world. And I had this moment before we went on stage in 2018 in Indonesia, where I was wrestling with the, hey, I don't really take time to appreciate the shit that I've accomplished in my life moment. And so we had this like 1.5-minute long intro. It was a really long intro to the set. And so it's time for the drummer to get out there and get situated, get his ears on, you know, tap things, feel comfortable. Guitars go out, plug in, tune up, make sure everything's perfect. And then I come in with the last 10 seconds of that. And then the show starts, lights up, everything's nuts. And so while everybody was out there on stage, I had this moment where I was just looking out on the stage. The stage is so impressive. It's so big. Like Indonesia does everything to the fucking nth degree. And they treated us like royalty while we were there. So I'm like coming off of a full week of just being treated like the Rolling Stones, having an absolute blast. And I took a moment before I walked on the stage to just be like, I did this. Like we did this together, but like me showing up every day is what got us here. Like, and if I didn't do this one thing, then we may not have been seen by the guy who pushed us along to the promoter who decided, who's the biggest promoter in Indonesia, and decided to bring us out. And so like, I want to, I guess, sort of like find a place where in your NIL experiences, do you get to kind of like have these conversations with the athletes to be like, I mean, they get it when they walk into Beaver Stadium, right? And I'm sure that we're approaching senior week. So like, that's going to be an emotional one for a lot of players. I'm wondering how many of them are going to get the, like, you know, the coaches' speeches. Like I watched them. I was glued to them. You were talking about Man in the Arena, and the first thing I thought of was Coach Spencer doing Sean Invictus.
Spencer,
man, him doing Invictus. His voice was so good. I literally tried to reach out. We're friends on Facebook, and I was trying to get him to come into the studio before he left for to go to the Giants.
Or the Giants, yeah.
I was like, I need you to come in and like record that for real, because like I had good audio, but there's the team's in there and there's some chatter and stuff, so like you can't get this like perfect audio out of it. But damn, if you want to have poetry read to you in a way that'll get you, man. I saved it to my Dropbox, the whole speech. I was like, this is fucking epic. Like I would never, all of I can't even tell you when I was editing, like Spencer's speeches were like half of the intros, because nothing gets you more amped up to watch a series about Penn State football than hearing how this coach is gassing up the players. Whose house? Like
that actually, it's funny because he was like landing big time recruits because of those videos. Like they would get.
I believe it. See, I fucking hope so. That makes me feel so good.
Spencer's the guy, man.
Yeah, man, he was an absolute goat. I was so sad when he left because like I feel like he was a very fundamental part of developing the culture for Penn State again in a way. It seemed like after he left, we talked about it on the show this week, like there was kind of a lull, it felt like in the locker room for like the player cohesiveness that this year has just like gone out the window. It's been dispelled.
It's a tough adjustment. I remember the moment. So we met in the D-line room. It was like a random meeting. It was like 9:00 on a Tuesday.
Yeah, no wonder you're close to him. You're like, he was on your ass probably.
He was my D-line coach, right? So, but he texted us when he was leaving. He was like, hey, we're having a meeting at 9. We didn't know what was going on. But I'm like, this is weird. We never meet this late. I don't know what's going on. And he told us that we were leaving, and we had 40 D linemen, loud, rambunctious, like big time kids, whatever. When he said it, you could hear a pen drop. Nobody had anything to say.
Damn.
It was like dead silence. So obviously that's our guy. Happy to see him doing well. But Coach Scott now,
he posted something the other day. He looked like he lost some weight. Like, he looks real good. He's looking real healthy.
I catch him running around. He'll go on like 5-7 mile runs. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah. He's So it was sad to see Spence go though. He's such a star, man. It's like Michael Jordan leaving, man.
Yeah, one of those things where like you don't want to see him leave, because I was like, man, I feel like him being a part of the culture is like a vital part of what would keep it building in that avenue. And obviously, like we said, like a week or two ago, like the art of loving college football is falling in love with the fact that transition is your new friend, because there are constantly all these moving parts. But it's really amazing that like I wish I had more stories of him. I feel like I got to know him personally because of like all the videos I watched of him. And those, the halftime locker room talks and the pregame locker room speeches. Senior day is coming up. Some of these athletes are going to be basically stepping out on the field, period, for the last time probably of their careers. Yep. And that always kind of fascinated me, because I was like, oh shit, like, what do you do after that? Yeah. Like, and so the mentality is obviously different from player to player. Everybody's got like a different ambition or a goal or where they want to go. They have an idea of what's going on afterward. What do you feel like you can do on your part from like the NIL agency side of things? And as like a mentor yourself, like as you're now retired from the program, you're their age, but like I said, in a couple of years, you're going to be just a little bit older and they're going to look to you as like, not a father figure, but like as a mentor. And they're going to be like, this guy knows, and he's been through it. And he's also ushered and guided. Look at whatever the list is going to be in 2 years of people that are going to be on your roster and people that you've dealt with and deals you've helped secure and players you've seen go through their last game coming out of that tunnel. It's like, how do you mitigate dealing with them?
Yeah.
And that I'm sure it always looks super emotional.
Yeah. You don't. So I guess I would say, because it is an emotional moment and it's a big transition, because most of those guys have loved football their whole lives. They've been playing it forever. And it's been probably the biggest factor in shaping them as the young men they are when it's done.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing that we can do as Limitless, the thing that I can do as the chief player development guy, whatever, is just helping them begin that transition before they're even thinking about it.
Yeah.
2-3 years before that even becomes a realistic, opportunity where the career is going to end, is getting them to think about life beyond football far before it gets there. Because if you're thinking about it 3 games before, if you're thinking about it at the very end, that's when it's tough to really transition, because you haven't prepared yourself
to make the transition.
And even, and I have a hard time even saying that, because how much can you really prepare for?
Right.
It's tough to really.
Yeah, you take the gas out of somebody by being like, hey, man, like,
no doubt.
You're not going pro, right? No it's doubt. Like, you don't want to be talking to people like that.
But even the guys who think they're going pro, to have them begin to think about that transition while they're still playing is valuable, because then when you're done, even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, you have a roadmap and different opportunities that you can go and dive into and start to figure things out about yourself. I'll be transparent on here. My dad played in the NFL. My uncle played in the NFL. My dad will tell you this himself. He didn't have a plan when football ended and life got really hard for 4 or 5 years for him, where he had to navigate that. And now he's in a great place. He's thriving. He's a minister. He's doing things he loves. Nice. But again, there's a journey to getting there. And to really do some of that soul searching while you're still active helps kind of soften that transition for sure.
Do they do that at all in like through the program? I feel like, your coaches are having conversations with you and whatnot, but I would imagine one of the MOs is not to be like, hey, let's take the wind out from their sails and let them know.
You want to let guys live their dream out for sure. And there's a fine line. For me, I knew I wasn't going to the NFL after 2019. Like, I knew it was over. My body was declining. I was just playing football to graduate at that point. But a lot of guys, it's a surprise to them when things don't go their way. So, even in my situation, they didn't talk to me about life after football at all until I told them, hey, I'm ready to move on. They do a good job, though, of bringing in different people to help have those conversations, get guys thinking that way without doing it.
So there is kind of like a little bit of a support system there when you see it's happening.
You're not just going into it blindly.
I would hope not. I mean, that's literally like the VA not taking care of veterans whenever they come back from wars. Like, that's how that's similar. It's like similar to me in that regard.
But I do think one thing we could benefit from are more former players coming in and sharing their story and sharing how they prepared for that transition and the things that they felt and experienced. I remember when I retired, my Uncle Andrew called me and I told him basically, hey, I'm excited to be done. Like, I'm ready to move on. I had no negative thoughts or feelings about it. And Andrew was like, well, like, at some point you're going to feel it.
Right.
And he prepared me for that. I didn't believe him. And then a month after I was done, I'm like, damn. Like,
no bullshit.
Like, this is not easy, like, at all. And, everybody goes through that at some point. So to have people in your corner who are able to help you with that transition is big.
So what is your role officially? Like, what's your title at Limitless?
So I am Director of Player Personnel. I do everything from recruiting. I negotiate brand deals. I do athlete relations. So, if a deal goes bad, if an athlete gets upset, I help mitigate some of that. I'm doing a little bit of everything, man. I'm negotiating contracts. We do Limitless Sports and Limited Time. Now it's a segment that we're doing on Instagram. So I'm coming in and giving the biggest sports stories and NIL news in the morning. So
nice.
There's all kinds of stuff, man. I'm doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
You basically functionally act as like an athlete developer. Like, you're basically like they're developing on the field, but from their professional, like the NIL side of things, where they're able to kind of really benchmark and capitalize on what they're building.
Yeah, it's kind of like so each team has a director of player development in college.
Okay,
it's like the exact same role in a lot of ways, just with NIL on top of it.
So do you see, to me, it's like that 1 degree of separation away from the university. And I feel like you're probably doing a little bit more of the legwork on like the actual meat and bones of what becomes something like tangibly important to that athlete, as opposed to the person who's like, oh yeah, make sure you're going to class, make sure you're this.
Right.
Man,
it's such a tough thing to navigate because everybody's so different and their experiences are different and the things that they're passionate about are different. So, it's not a one size fits all. I think it's a lot to ask of any director of player development for a big football team who has 100, 120 athletes.
You come in and there's other NIL agencies, but like, you're here and you're basically one of the top 3 of Penn State. So like, you've got that's massive already out of the gate. So like, what are you going to do? I guess like moving forward, like how do you basically mitigate? Okay, we're doing this.
Yep.
This is the university we're affiliated with. These are the players that we're going to be working with.
Yep.
Are you guys scaling? Like, obviously you guys have grown since the couch conversations in February.
Yep.
How fast are you able to get like a salary and like benefits and like taken care of that way? Or is it like, I don't know. I didn't know if they were like, oh no, you basically are a glorified nonprofit and you have to function in that regard.
Yeah. So we, up until recently, again, there was a rule that the school really couldn't do anything with any of the collectives or agencies. So, we're still not receiving anything from Penn State specifically to run this. But
probably not far off.
We're not far off. Again, with Sean retiring, Sean is an active student athlete at Penn State. So there's like a little bit of conflict of interest there. If the school's like,
certainly,
we'll help Sean Clifford out. And it's like, like he's the quarterback. I wonder why. So,
but also maybe they embrace that. If you take care of the players here,
no doubt,
and the media follows,
right,
you're able to basically build the culture by not actually having it be,
exactly. So, I do see some collaboration between us and the school at some point. I don't know, how deep that'll be or what level that'll be at, but I do see it. But we're, specifically going through an acquisition a little bit. So, we have some different opportunities open up, and salaries, benefits, things start to roll in because initially
acquisition how.
So we're working with another company. I won't announce it yet, the specific name, but we have some funding, some technology coming our way that's going to help us scale and help us grow. Because realistically, if we were to expand beyond 50 athletes with just the staff that we have now,
you're going to be worked.
It's going to be worked. Like, it's going to be a lot of work there. So, we'll scale and we'll grow. And I'm excited for that opportunity, honestly, because I think we can provide a lot of value to a lot of athletes.
Yeah, well, the appropriate staffing and the ability to kind of mitigate handling all of the things that you're going to have to tackle. When, like 50 athletes, I can't imagine. That's got to be like wrangling monkeys, dude. That's going to be insane.
It's ridiculous. I feel so bad. Like, I'm talking to this girl. I'll miss a text, and I get hit with 35 more, and I just forget it ever happened. It's like, you're not interested in me. Like, no, like it's not that at all. Like there's just so much going on.
You through you want to shout at me for a day?
You want to look at these texts with me?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot.
Tell you what, babe, you handle Sean's Instagram right now.
Why don't you look at this? Actually, read through those comments. Tell me how your day's going.
How you feeling now? After a few comments, not feeling too good. Well, dude, I think you're primed and ready. You have the right mindset. It feels like, I mean, you've got this very positively reinforced. You've got all the philosophy of like your dad and your uncle and the Penn State football program and like all of your athleticism leading you up to where you are now. That all is basically going to do a lot. I think that does the lion's share of the work for you when it comes to, like you said, I don't feel like getting up, but like I get up and I get the reps and go after it. Like I'm excited to see where your future with this goes. And honestly, dude, I hope that like we get to do some work in that like capacity over there. Like when you guys are ready to bring in a creative director or whatever, you tell me I want to be over there and like helping out. Cause like to me, I don't know if you grew up on Penn State football or not, but I definitely did. Like I was born here in State College and, I didn't know I was going to college after high school. Certainly. I was like, I had no interest in it. The only reason I went was because I could take a degree that I was actually interested in. Right. And because of my martial arts background, I was able to like see it through and graduate and get both my degrees. And I should probably hang them up here as proof that I have them.
Why not?
Yeah, I paid for them. Might as well. But I had no idea I was going to Penn State. And then I went to Penn State and I don't even know. Everybody gets such a different experience here. And so it's really not like this unanimous, like everybody, college is a great time for everybody, just bar none. Everybody has a good time in college usually. But as I have now moved on to like the other like professional and creative and entrepreneurial endeavors moving forward after that aspect of my life, I'm like, what do we do to give back? Yeah. And so like I think alumni can, if you're some big business mogul that made your money off of whatever the .com boom of like the 90s or whatever as a Penn State alumni, you probably have several $1 million sitting around and you can donate to this alumni association. But the office where we are right now, Greg Woodman, the guy who runs Affinity Connection, he deals with the fraternities a lot. And one of their problems is the younger and younger people that are joining these fraternities like could give a fuck less about giving back to their fraternities. They're like, they're just here to have the experience and then peace out. And then, but that's not a sustainable model for giving back. Right. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, I don't have millions of dollars to give away to the university and an endowment or to get a bench somewhere like Old Main. But what I can do is apply my genuine like skill sets that I've developed over the years. And you're doing this now already actively in this moment, but I kind of did it with WPSU with the video work that I was doing there, but I also want to kind of continue to do that because as the university continues to develop and grow and, the NIL grows and the Penn State football program grows, like I want to be a part in some way to kind of give back and do something that is going to be truly actually beneficial, not like this is on paper because 6 people signed it and there's going to be a money exchange and that's how I give back. It's like I want to actually give back to the culture. Because I remember as a kid being like 5 years old, going to the alumni or the homecoming parade downtown. My mom would like fight off a bunch of sorority girls that were trying to like steal spots or whatever so that me and my little brother could go and get candy from like the parade. And we were always across from like the Chopstick Express is or whatever. It's like right downtown. And like that to me has seared in my mind. Like some of like the first cold nights of the fall, I was like, man, what a really magical experience for me as a kid. And I feel like you get older and obviously a lot of that magic kind of disappears. Like Disneyland's not as magical anymore, but like there is a way to give that back to people in really profound ways. I always think about that in Iowa, whenever they do at Kinnick Stadium, they have the Children's Hospital right there. Yep. Like shit's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Like I don't care like what program you play for. If you're there and they're doing that on your night, it's like, hell yeah, this is so awesome.
Everybody loves it.
Yeah. And so like there's gotta be more of that moving forward. And I'm hoping that we're going to start to see some of that as we get the old heads at Penn State start to retire and new blood gets in there. I think this new president, she seems like a badass. Yeah, she does. Kraft. Absolute. He's he's a legend right now. We needed him now, I think in this moment now more than ever. So it's going to be this really like tumultuous growing period.
Yeah. I think you're on the money. I think, it calls me back to like, we always say at Limitless, we want to be transformational, not transactional. So like,
that's what it takes.
And that's really what you're kind of alluding to, or people like you who want to, come back. They may not have millions of dollars, but there are ways to pour into this place and the people that are here and leaving it better than what you found it as without a bunch of money and without a bunch of, clout and respect, maybe.
And hopefully without a lot of red tape and orange tape and yellow tape preventing you from being able to really do it in a way that might be meaningful for you and maybe just at the capacity that you're able to give in the first place, you know? Like, it's kind of weird to think about, but like, you're a Penn State graduate.
Mm-hmm.
I am. Mm-hmm. So is Chris. So is Brandon Noble. Yep. So is Sean Clifford. So he's about to be. You're about to be.
Yep.
So it's like it's funny that like we say it all the time, but like you can go out in the real world and bump into a Penn State alumni and not anywhere. And so it's like there's more to this place than we're allowing to be sort of like the sinew and like cohesive bond between everybody. And I want to get back to a place where I feel like we're paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Penn State as a university, as an institution of higher education, feels very transactional to me now more than ever. When you're making your employees pay for parking, we need to have a fucking talk. Like, oh, you don't own all that fucking land? Right. Oh, I'm paying to park here? I'll just do the visitor parking and walk 2 miles. That's fine. Thank you. In the middle of winter to go edit, videos that you're using to help recruit Penn State football players to line your pockets a little bit more. But don't worry, I'll make $15 an hour part-time. That's totally fine. Right. I'll win Emmys for you off of that work. It's like, it's almost like sweatshop labor to like, and zero appreciation for like the blood, sweat, and tears that gets poured into it. And so I'm hoping that, I was excited about the NIL because I feel like when a bunch of old people are usually generally very against something, I'm like, there's probably something good in there.
Right. So something good.
Something good's going to come from this for sure. So like, when it comes through and then I see like, I know Paris Palmer, he worked with me in the video department at WPSU. He was, I mean, I loved him and like I gassed him up all the time when I could because he would be like, he'd have questions about like editing style or why did something this way or that way. And I was like, he was probably the first person that I think ever took an interest in like my technique for the way I do shit. And I was like, I really appreciated that. And it really resonated with me. And that's a testament to like him as an athlete growing up and being hungry to learn how to do more, do better, grow and evolve constantly as you do. And I feel like if I can continue to do that, I want to. Yep. And it seems like you're going to continue to do that no matter what. No like if you're like, if it's not here, it's going to be somewhere else with the same enthusiasm. Right. So it's like, I would like to do it here while I can. And like I said, I hope Sean sticks around. I think he's going to have an awesome leg up and free time next year to actually do some serious, like it behoove him to be able to do some serious damage in a year where he's not finally playing or whatever. And to see him surrounded by an obvious staff of people that, give a shit. I think you said it best, like that transformative and not transactional relationship is like tantamount to the degree of success you guys are going to see as an agency. No doubt. You guys are doing some really, really great shit. And I feel like some of the NIL agencies do this like heartstrings kind of tugging, like, don't you want to see these athletes grow up in a real big facility? It's like, that to me just feels like it's like self-serving, but you guys feel like you have like really the athlete's best interest in mind. And that is, again, in an era of Wild West NIL world, like you definitely want that person on your superhero team.
No doubt about it. And I appreciate that, brother. Seriously, we're trying. We're not perfect. We're learning just like everybody else. But again, the athlete's interests, taking care of them, that's always going to be priority one with Limitless NIL.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Absolutely. I appreciate you. We'll do this again. We have big developments and stuff. We'll have you come on and we'll talk some more about some of the things that are developing. I'd love that. Yeah, again, when Sean has a moment to fucking breathe and detox from like his whirlwind, get it doing over there. Like, get that thing going because I feel like he obviously there's no time for it right now, and I wouldn't want him to focus on anything like that before we're going into these last games and bowl games.
Yep.
But like, if and when. Yeah, man. Like I've listened to him speak. I watch the media day stuff. I watch the footage that we take. I think like you're so well spoken. If the two of you are as well spoken as you are, and there's even one more person on your staff that is that way, and I'm sure there's more than that. That's the kind of you want to see these roundtable discussions where you guys are like really tackling shit. And I feel like we've got this gear. It is going to be mobile. So like if we gotta get us down there to do some stuff like just to test it out, it'd be worth.
We can do
testing the waters to see how it goes. And I think it sells itself because it's like when it's just you guys, it's your guys' vested interest in this NIL agency that you guys are all equally co-part of and rowing in the same direction for. So it's like man, the shit that will come out of your guys' mouths, that'll be transformative for, you know, an audience in mass is like really, truly powerful. And I guess like to me, I'm just proud to know you and to know that, you know, we all come from the same alma mater and that we're all kind of like building this shit. No doubt. It's like building the boat while you're like in the middle of like high tides in a fucking choppy sea. Like you're like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to do a little bit of construction right now. Like, and we're still doing this. We're still doing this.
Still, right.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you being my third guest. You're going to be the reason that it definitely makes it to the top 5% of podcasts in the world. That's the goal. That's the goal. Like, I feel like consistency is key, and the content's engaging and the topics are engaging, then I think I'm going to get there.
Well, I hope this helps, brother.
Definitely, man. It will. I appreciate you doing it. I'll make sure I get you some social clips and stuff to post too.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother.
That's it. Collab or Die, episode number 3. We're out. Peace.
Yes,
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
That is a wrap on another episode of the Collab or Die podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making this episode for you. And now it's time for our favorite part of the show, the part where I beg you to please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Don't be that guy. Follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I want this podcast to be wherever you are, whenever you need it, just like a reliable wingman or a comforting bowl of mac and cheese. And don't be shy. Give us a shout out on social media at Collab or Die Podcast on all the cool platforms to share your thoughts, your feedback, and your love. Until next time, Collab or Die, baby.